Now sorry.
Is that you know, but I'm asking myself, is that something special?
Oh, it's very special. Very special in terms of...
What's special about it? I think if you come to Christ, whatever you are, that's a turnaround.
Yes,
if you are heathen, or whatever, a Roman, or whatever it is. For them, of course, they have been fighting Christianity, but at the same time, to me, it's the same step they have to make. Back to Christ, acknowledge their sin, and come to find and acknowledge that the people had it the right, promised and proclaimed the right Christ, the right word of God of salvation.
Yeah.
And not what they had as more kicking laws and regulations and all that.
Yeah, that's quite right, Hank. But I want to say that it is extremely special in light of the history of the Old Testament period and the changeover to the New Testament. Because what we've got in the Old Testament is we've got the faithful people of God who are called out of the children of Abraham. We've got essentially one nation. And it's one nation, Israel, who's the bearer of the truth. Right? And all the Gentiles are in just pagandom and darkness. You know, the Gentiles don't have the light. The light resides with Israel during the Old Testament period. Yep. So we move through, we go through all the Old Testament period, and we come to the time of Christ. Yeah? And then Christ calls these 12 apostles, and he sets up the new kingdom. And then he tells them to go out and bring the Gentiles in. He tells them to go to the Gentiles with the truth. And so we've got Philadelphia here that was composed of Gentile Christians, and they're the ones who now bear the light, not Israel now, because Israel here is called the synagogue of Satan. You see? Whereas it's the Christians in Philadelphia that have inherited this truth. So if you think about it, the Israel of old is like Shebna, who was deposed and removed, and Eliakim has come in. And that's what's going on here in the first century. And this was the crucial changeover period. It's of major, major significance in terms of the flow of history. I can't stress that enough. That's very, very important, yes.
But it's always the work of the Holy Spirit in people.
Oh, absolutely.
Whatever they are, Jew or Gentile.
Oh, yes. And we'll put the Holy Spirit in there. That's exactly right. It's the Holy Spirit in people's hearts. But can you see that historically this is a big shift?
Yeah.
Historically now, big shift, because now the gospel is going out into all the nations of the world. And it's not that the Jews are forgotten, but if the Jews are going to persecute the Christians and want to destroy Christ and what Christ is standing for, then they're showing themselves in opposition to God. They're rejecting their own Messiah. When that happens, they become the synagogue of Satan, and they themselves are expelled from the kingdom. If they want to return to the kingdom, they must come through the true steward, because he holds the key. Anyone who wants to get into the kingdom must come through the true steward who holds the key to the palace. And that is a very crucial point. So you see these Christians at Philadelphia, even though they were small and they had little power, you know, this was an amazing thing to be told. They were saying, Jesus is saying, don't worry that you have been expelled from the synagogue. Don't worry that the Jews are persecuting you. I haven't forgotten you. You hold the truth now. And I'm going to ensure that these people who are troubling you, they're going to come and acknowledge that you have it. And I'm going to put in front of you an open door, and nobody can shut it. So if you think about this church, I'll draw it. I should get Jessica to do this. Here's the church.
Looks like a Chinaman.
There you go. That's the church of Philadelphia. And before this church, there is an open door, and people can come into it. And interestingly enough, there is a missionary interpretation to this promise. This is one of the main lines of interpretation of this letter, that Jesus is promising that he's going to place an open door in front of the church, and people are going to come into it and acknowledge that the Christians have the truth, even some of the Jews. will be converted. And they've got to hold fast to their truth, you see, because they are the true members of the kingdom now. And so don't think of going back to, what you've forsaken, because now the kingdom resides with you, and Jesus is saying, I'm going to ensure that this church will last and prosper. Now, I've gone through that a little bit fast, but I hope you get the main points, because...
May I just...
Yes, Hank.
Because I've been going through, reading through Revelations, but that point comes back right through till the last pages. That point of that an open door,
yep.
And that really they had to convince the Jews that those are the followers of Jesus Christ, and they are the true church.
Right.
So in other words, because a lot of people think, the Jews were, but they're not. They're forgotten now. They more or less, they're not forgotten, but at the same time, they are on the wrong side of it, and they have to come back to Jesus Christ.
Yes, insofar, just to repeat that, insofar as the Jews are persecuting the Christians and still rejecting Christ, then they're showing that they're outside the kingdom. In order for the Jews to return, and God has not forgotten them, they must come through the true steward. They must submit to the steward, which involves acknowledging that they've made a mistake about him. It involves acknowledging that the judgment that they've made about him has been terribly wrong, which is what's going on in the pages of Acts 2, with Peter's sermon. They're acknowledging they made a huge mistake. And they're submitting to Jesus as the steward. So Hank's quite right, though. This is something that flows right through Revelation. It's a crucial factor that keeps coming back again and again. And it's one of the major themes of the book. Just who is part of the kingdom? Just who is the true temple of God? Is it the first century Jews, or is it the Christians who are serving the true steward? And what's going to happen in the conflict between them? Who will win? That's a major theme of the book. So if you haven't got that now, don't worry, because we're going to come back to that, because that's a crucial theme. Okay, I'm going to move you on just a little bit. The references to the, what does it mean to have, hold on to what you have so that no one will take your crown? What does that mean, do you think?
Is it the crown of life, referring to eternal life?
The crown of life, yes, the blessings that they have, the promises that they're going to receive. Hold on to what you're standing for, so that nobody will take that crown of eternal blessing away from you. Yes?
I thought that it was a reward for your deeds for Christ.
Well, yes.
And because the salvation, you cannot lose your salvation, but you can lose your crown. You can reward.
Yeah. The Bible.
Somewhere else in the Revelation said, "Behold, let not take anybody your crown."
The crown is the future reward, but it's as long as we understand that that's not sort of works, not resulting from works. Even the reward that we receive is a blessing of God's grace. As long as we understand that, then the Bible does certainly speak about rewards and encourages us to think about them and to hold on to them. But it's not a case of payment for services rendered so much as God just being abundantly gracious and wanting to give us this eternity of blessing and reward and all that goes along with that. Okay, references to the temple of God in verse 12 are especially interesting and significant given the earlier reference to the synagogue of Satan. And bear in mind that, at least in these lectures, I'm favouring the earlier dating of the book of Revelation during the 60s. So the temple in Jerusalem is still in existence. But these Jews in the first century have been called a synagogue, a place of worship, G-O-G-U-E, of Satan. And the Christians, they are going to be the true temple. This is also another theme that's going to come back in the book. But the fact that they're being told that they're the true temple and that that name is going to be written on them. They will be called the true temple of God, not the Jews, whose temple is still standing, but not for much longer. That's a crucial theme as well. Questions or comments on that? What else are they told that they're going to have written on them?